This is the Ramana Maharshi Satsang. Listen, reflect, and deeply meditate. Know yourself. Welcome. I'm Richard Clarke. I'm not a guru or a teacher. Ramana's teaching is deep and profound, and so I want to share it. I'm reading and commenting on the Ashtavakra Gita. Today is chapter 17, verses 13 through 16. And in this chapter, Ashtavakra is talking about the true knower, the sage. 17:13. The liberated soul does not blame or praise, give or take, rejoice or become angry. He is everywhere, unattached and free. The great soul remains poised and undisturbed, whether in the presence of a passionate woman or observing the approach of his death. He is truly free. The sage sees no difference between happiness and misery, man and woman, adversity and success. Everything is seen to be the same. In the sage, there is neither violence nor mercy, arrogance nor humility, anxiety nor wonder. His worldly life is exhausted. So now let's break down these verses. 17:13. The liberated soul does not blame or praise, give or take, rejoice or become angry. He is everywhere, unattached and free. This verse points to the nature of true freedom. When you are no longer caught in the cycles of judgment, attachment, or emotional turbulence, you recognize yourself as free. Praise and blame, giving and taking, these belong to the ever-changing movements of the mind. The liberated one rests in stillness, untouched by these fluctuations. Freedom is not something to be achieved, but something already present when identification with transient experiences falls away. You are not the one reacting. You are the unchanging awareness in which reactions appear and disappear. In spiritual practice, this verse calls you to observe how much you are influenced by praise and blame or shifting emotions. Liberation is not about suppressing feelings, but recognize that they have no true hold over you. When you see yourself as the silent witness, you naturally move beyond reactivity. This understanding brings a deep sense of peace where nothing external has power over your inner stability. True freedom is not found in controlling the world, but in recognizing that you were never bound to it in the first place. 17:14. The great soul remains poised and undisturbed, whether in the presence of a passionate woman or observing the approach of his death. He is truly free. This verse reveals the unwavering nature of a liberated being. The mind constantly swings between attraction and aversion, pleasure and fear. But the one who is truly free remains untouched by these movements, whether faced with desire or the inevitable end of the body. The great soul sees both as passing appearances. There is no struggle, no grasping, and no resistance. Freedom means resting in the unshakable awareness that neither pleasure nor loss defines you. You may notice how easily the mind is pulled by desires or fears, shaping your experience of reality. This verse reminds you that stability is not found in avoiding certain experiences, but in recognizing that they do not define who you are. Whether encountering pleasure or facing mortality, yourself remains unchanged. Spiritual practice deepens when you stop chasing or avoiding and instead abide in the awareness that is already at peace. 1715. The sage sees no difference between happiness and misery, man and woman, adversity and success. Everything is seen to be the same. The mind thrives on distinctions, constantly dividing experience into opposites, good and bad, pleasure and pain, success and failure. The sage sees through this illusion. Beneath the surface of these apparent differences, all experiences arises and dissolves within the same awareness. To be truly free means to stop chasing one thing while avoiding another. When everything is seen as equal, there is no longer struggle, only the natural flow of existence. In daily life, you may notice how much energy is spent in preferring one experience over another. This verse challenges you to see beyond these preferences and rest in a deeper equanimity. Happiness and misery are just changing waves in the vast ocean of awareness. The more you recognize this, the less you are disturbed by life's ups and downs. True peace does not come from controlling circumstances, but from seeing that at the deepest level, nothing ever truly changes. 1716. In the sage, there is neither violence nor mercy, arrogance nor humility, anxiety nor wonder. His worldly life is exhausted. This verse points to the state beyond all opposites, violence and mercy, arrogance and humility. These are all aspects of a mind caught in the play of identity and judgment. The sage has moved beyond these distinctions. There is nothing to prove, no role to maintain. The exhaustion of worldly life does not mean withdrawal from living, but rather the dissolving of the illusion that anything external can define the self. What remains is pure being, unburdened and complete. You may find yourself caught between qualities, trying to be good, humble, or merciful. But all of these arise from a sense of self that still clings to identity. This verse invites you to step beyond such concerns. When identification with the mind's play is exhausted, there is no longer an effort to be anything. Freedom is not about acquiring better qualities. It is about resting in that which needs nothing at all. These verses reveal the nature of true freedom as resting beyond attachment, reactivity, and duality. When you no longer identify with shifting experiences, plays and brain, desires and fears, or even qualities of the mind, you discover a profound peace that was never absent. This is the state of the self, unmoving, whole, and completely free. So now a video from Nome.
You are the self, and to steadily abide in self-knowledge, or self-realization as we call it, you have only to abandon the misidentification with the falsely assumed existence as an ego entity. You have only to abandon the false supposition that you are in some way defined by or connected to a mind, the senses, prana, the body. Such misidentification alone gives the false appearance of being bound, and consequently is the seed for any kind of suffering. When we feel like as if we are bound, then we wisely seek liberation. Yet the liberation we seek is our own nature. It is not true that the self, which is Brahman, is one kind of self, and you yourself are another kind of self. There is only one self. So to utterly eliminate the possibility of misidentification, in other words, in order to utterly destroy ignorance and its consequent bondage and suffering, the Maharshi gives the instruction that you should inquire as to who you are. Because if you deeply inquire, who am I, within yourself, the entire notion the perspective of being an individual, an experiencer, caught up in whatever, thoroughly dissolves. Hearing the truth about the self, if you approach it as if it were the self, and yourself as another, you have to find out then what the nature of this yourself is. Who am I? You will find that your nature is only pure existence, pure consciousness, which is also pure bliss. The scriptures say that one should become Brahman. It does not mean that we should transform our nature from one thing to another. That is not possible. All that is meant is the abandonment of misidentification. So that your identity shifts, as it were, from the embodied individual, which is thoroughly an illusion, to the reality. I say, as it were, in terms of the shifting, because your existence is always that. If the one who is ignorant inquires into his own nature, there will be found to be existing no such thing as an ignorant one. Just the one who is knowledge. Not who has knowledge, but the one who is knowledge. For in self-knowledge, being and knowledge are identical. It is not possible to know the self as this. Who would be knowing what? But if you inquire, and inquiry is transcendent of the senses and transcendent of the mind, if you inquire to know who you are, then as the Maharshi has stated, the inquirer is himself the answer, and there is no other answer. Wise sages say that we should wake up from the stream of samsara. It is right advice, it is holy advice. But who is it that dreams in samsara? Dreams of the samsara, and then dreams that he is in the samsara. And who are you? As long as the idea of existing as an individual entity persists, there will be seemingly endless waves of limited experience or samsara, waves of illusion. If you know yourself as you truly are, the illusion has not yet started, nor will it. The samsara is rootless. It did not develop. There is no one who dreams, who sleeps, or who wakes. No one born and no one perishing. Just one solitary being, eternal and infinite, exists, and you are that. Therefore, realize the bliss by being utterly detached, knowing the real abiding place of bliss as yourself. Realize knowledge by knowing yourself as consciousness itself, transcendent of all that is perceived and conceived. Realize being in utter identity with it, that leaves no possibility of the trace of illusion.
And now we'll use a few minutes and inquire ourselves. You exist, and you know that you exist. Inquire, investigate within yourself. Who am I when I am not striving to be anything in particular? What remains when I stop identifying with the body and its experiences? How is it when I no longer label experiences as good or bad? How is it when I stop identifying with my reactions and simply watch them? Who am I? What am I? What is the nature of my existence? All right. And we'll close with our chant. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om. Peace, peace, peace.
Mm. Mm.
I thought this session was particularly good for the moment.
Yeah, it was. It was all about differencelessness.
Mm-hmm.
Differencelessness between a passionate woman and mortality.
Yes, I know the examples that are used sometimes are pretty extreme, but you know, who we are is not touched by any of it.
That's the truth. That's the
You
truth.
know, and that includes Trump and our reactions to Trump, our reactions of the ego. And maybe he is doing us a spiritual service by letting us observe those reactions so that we can disidentify from the one who is reacting.
And that's part of Ramana's teachings too. It's like, you know who you are, but then in the world, act like the hero, like you're involved in it.
Right, you're involved in it, but you let it unfold instead of trying to drive it around with your ego.
You're not attached to it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're a householder and you have certain duties and all that, go ahead and just be that, but
Yes,
no attachment to it.
yes. So to me, again, I think given the situation that we're in America, this is a remarkably good message.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And no matter what, it's wonderful.
Yes, yes, exactly, exactly.
So much
In,
grace.
anyway, see
Yeah.
you next week.
See you next week. Thank you, Richard. Say hi to Carol.
Okay, I will.
Okay. Thank you.
Namaste.
Namaste.